Good afternoon. My name is Marcel Stewart. I am the outreach coordinator for Suitcase and Point. And before we get going with this workshop, I just have a little thing I would like to share. Last night, there was a disturbance in my neighborhood around 1:30 in the morning. Prolonged car horn could be heard not far off in the distance, coupled with aggressive yelling from a man. This had been going on for some time. I was concerned that things might escalate, get physically violent, but I don't know the neighborhood well enough yet to put my cape on, so I stayed inside. My partner, half asleep, kept saying, "So loud, like it's so loud." And I mentioned this to highlight that this man was unapologetic in the space that he was occupying in my head at 1:45 in the morning. Like, I'm no doctor, but he seemed unstable and he needed help. Just like DeAndre Campbell needed help when he called the police to his house. The same police that murdered him not long after that call. Even still, with all this going on in my mind, I called the police. When they showed up, the man began yelling at them, cussing. He was very explosive, being uncontrollable. And the police talked him down, stayed with him for almost half an hour, and then eventually they left. I said to myself, wow, those cops really de-escalated that situation. I wonder if Regis Korchinski-Paquette was white, like this dude in my neighborhood was. Would she still be alive? If George Floyd had been white, would that piece of shit cop have taken his knee off George Floyd's neck after 7 minutes? After 4 minutes? Would he have even put his knee there to begin with at all? These are the things I'll be thinking about today. I encourage you to think about them too. People are dying. Black men, Black women, Black queer people, Black trans people, Black people with disabilities. It weighs heavy on me. Now, in the snapshot for Jonathan and Ari's upcoming forum discussion, they ask, what does it mean to truly be seen? What does it mean to truly be seen? I'm still figuring that out. I look forward to some enlightenment today. We had a guest facilitator, and I'm not sure if he is available right now. Oh, he is. Fantastic. Okay, so I would like to introduce our guest facilitator for this afternoon. It is Ian Ellis Lidstone. Now, Ian is a queer, transmasculine, gender non-binary, multidisciplinary artist, performer, musician, and activist from Niagara on the shared territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and Neutral peoples. They are the singer-songwriter and guitarist for the 2SL LGBTQIA+ grunge punk band Saint Stone. They were a core member of St. Catharines-based physical theater ensemble Twitches and Itches Theater for 5 years. During that time, they accepted the 2017 Best Emerging Artist Award of the City of St. Catharines. Here's Ian.
Hi, thanks, Marcel. I'm so excited to be a part of this reading today. Before we jump in and I hand it over to Ari and Jonathan, I just want to start off by acknowledging the land that this virtual event is taking place on. It is still rare for those of us who study and work in Niagara to acknowledge that we meet on Indigenous lands over which Indigenous people still hold jurisdiction. Here in St. Catharines, we are meeting on the shared lands of the Ongwe-Honwe. This shared territory is held by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and Neutral peoples. All of us, both Indigenous and newcomers, are treaty people responsible to uphold the treaties first made here. A key treaty governing this territory is the Dish with One Spoon Agreement. This treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee binds them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, settlers, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. In particular, this treaty signifies that all of us that share this territory, the dish, and its resources are to be eaten with only one spoon. That means we have to share the responsibility of ensuring the dish is never empty, which includes taking care of the land and the creatures that we share it with. Importantly, there are no knives at the table, representing that we must keep the peace. In talking about various forms of queer and trans art spaces and activism, it is essential that we root our discussion in the fact that historically and currently, Indigenous people are disproportionately affected by many of the topics that we cover, and we see similar targeting happening to racialized communities, perpetuating long-standing ideas of anti-Black racism and a wide range of structural discrimination. Too often in recent and current histories of activism and art spaces, those most impacted, those whose stories we most need to hear, are excluded from opportunities and dialogues, despite the fact that BIPOC communities have always been at the forefront of pushing for societal and systemic change. In all forms of this activism and art, we must be working to address these issues. Real quick, before we begin, I want to acknowledge that this is a safe virtual space. So in this space, we will not tolerate racism, homophobia, transphobia, sexism, classism, or ableism. If anyone is found engaging in dialogue that is harmful to those watching or participating, those moderating the conversation will see that you are removed from the discussion. Ari and Jonathan, I am so excited for this reading. We are so lucky that you're here to share it with us today. So whenever you're both ready, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcel and Ian. So my name is Ari, and I come to this theater project as a brown, pansexual, non-binary trans person. And I was raised in Canada after my parents immigrated here from Sri Lanka. So I'm a first-generation Canadian, second-generation Sri Lankan. I graduated from the communications program at Brock and did some theater there as well, which is where I first got involved with this project. And I left St. Catharines in 2018 and have been working with this project with Jonathan remotely since then, after the first showing of our first draft.
Thanks, Ari. And I come to this theater project as a queer, white, cisgender male, born and raised in Western Canada, in Calgary specifically, having grown up in the evangelical Christian faith. I'm a writer, a theater creator, producer, arts activist, and educator, and I currently work for the Belfry Theatre in Victoria, British Columbia. So while this names my origins, my political commitments are feminist, anti-racist, decolonial, spiritually nomadic, universalist, and affirming. And now affirming is a term that I use and many use, referring to the celebration and full inclusion of all sexual and gender minority people in faith communities at all levels of participation and leadership. I also personally use the term queer evangelical to describe myself and my commitments to deconstructing my former faith while prioritizing my affiliation with the incredibly diverse, resilient, and inspirational LGBTIAQ2S+ community. So together, Ari and I are the creators of that power. Now, before we jump in further, we want to acknowledge the territories that we live and reside on.
So I'm on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands.
And I am on the unceded Coast Salish territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, known as the Esquimalt and Songhees Nations, also known as Victoria, British Columbia. I thank these peoples for their hospitality as I live and work and play and create on these territories as an uninvited guest, attempting to follow the path of mutual respect for coexisting side by side in both agreement and care.
So today we're pretty much going to talk a little bit about how we created this, and we're going to read a quick excerpt from our script. So we're going to read about 10 to 12 scenes, and then after that we're going to go into a bit more detail about how we created this project, how we developed it using our OAC grants, how we, some of our key moments of realizations, those kinds of things, while you guys send in your questions, and then later on we'll open it up to even more questions after that. So first, we're just going to talk a bit about the creation process. So Jonathan, do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, so setting up the origins of this piece, I came to this catalyzed by my experiences and recognition of the violence and trauma that can result from anti-queer exclusion and discrimination within Christianity, and my own curiosity to make sure that circumstances in other religions to sort of negotiate and get more information on what those were and what was happening in other religions. So I had toured a work called Oblivion, and I toured in Christian faith communities for 3.5 years with a focus on showing the dangers of conversion therapy and helping move those communities forward in their complete embrace of the LGBTIQ2+ community, especially in the full life of their communities. So Oblivion was very Christian-centric as a theater piece, and it was done in 2 acts. The first act was the 6-minute play, and the second act was a conversation with the congregations to help them sort of move forward in their affirming and acceptance. So then when I entered my master's in social justice at Brock University in St. Catharines, I pitched an art-based research project for my thesis, which would expand on Oblivion's questions to the bigger questions that I was wrestling with of how queer and trans persons in other faiths were negotiating these intersecting identities. And then I met Ari at the Student Justice Center, even before I started the project. So when it came time to find collaborators, we already knew there was this really cool fit, as we had both experienced what's called sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression change efforts, also known as types of modern conversion therapy. We were both queer people of faith, theater artists, social justice minded, and wine lovers. Important in Niagara.
So yeah, we really used our shared points of connections as catalysts when we co-created this piece, and we wanted to make sure we didn't conflate our differences. We wanted to make sure that we not only talked about some of our limitations and traumatic experiences, but also some of the possibilities. We really wanted to think about queer religious agencies and futures filled with hope. So that was a part of this piece as well.
Yeah, we didn't really have to dig far to confirm that conservative heteropatriarchal belief systems within both of our religions feed this anti-queer exclusion and discriminate against LGBTIQ2+ persons and their expression and gender and sexuality. So while there are more progressive attitudes and approaches within these religious traditions, and we totally applaud those, the majority held perspectives define the experiences for most queer Christian and Hindu people, who must navigate beliefs that name queer people as flawed, unequal, and unwelcome. And consequently, we often struggle to reconcile our commitments to our religious communities and our sexuality and gender in ways that do not reproduce violence toward ourselves and others. And then, on top of that, there's the Canadian context.
Right, where the religious majority is still Christian. So non-dominant religious beliefs are often deeply connected to cultural solidarities in the face of white supremacy. And especially in the South Asian diaspora, this need to kind of hold on to racial and ethnic solidarity can lead a lot of people to give up on or abandon their queer identity in order to maintain things like loyalty to family, faith, and culture, to still hold on to those pieces.
And then while secularization narratives, aka leave religion and all your queer problems will be solved, are often offered as a means to queer liberation and belonging, this does not address what Ari was just talking about, the diasporic solidarities that were just described. And it also does nothing to remedy the desire that many of us hold to embrace multiple identities and communities as a holistic expression of the breadth and depth of our entire personhood.
So both of us had different reasons why faith had been both a gift and a curse, and had enabled and stifled our growth. And this really resulted in the final process and the creation of that power, because we were trying to make sure that we created kind of a new queer world, a new alternative to exclusion or secularization. And that's what we tried to do with this piece, where we could create something that allowed us to be all that we are. And that's to say that queer religious agency is necessary and possible, and that's what we tried to do with this.
Yeah. Queer world building, I love it. So, okay, so the resulting piece came to light over 3 months of creation, and it hadn't been seen or read by anyone except the two of us. So we had created in this really cool bubble of trust, except my thesis supervisor had read it, and then we brought in Colin Anthis from Twitches and Itches to do a devising workshop with us, which was awesome. But also he didn't see it or read it. So it was totally under wraps. And then we did an 80-minute staged reading where we performed this private workshop of that power in 2018. So after that, I wrote my thesis about the process, and then I ended up moving to BC, and Ari moved to Toronto. And we kept in touch with the goal to take the show further, hoping that we'd somehow be able to be reunited from across the country. And then in the meantime, we applied for and were awarded grants to develop the show further from the Ontario Arts Council Recommender grants. Specifically, thanks to Suitcase and Point, Tottering Biped, and Greenlight Arts, who greenlighted this show to move forward into some form of development in dramaturgy. So with their belief in the concept, we were able to reunite in Toronto in 2020 alongside dramaturg and playwright Diane Flax, who you may be familiar with one of her most recent works that was at Buddies in Bad Times called Unholy, that also tackles sort of interfaith perspectives in terms of queerness. So with Diane, we took the script through multiple drafts, and then, yeah, the excerpts that you'll hear us read from today are from this newest version of our script, which would have premiered in 1 week from now at In the Soil.
Mm-hmm. So at one point in the final script of the first version, we asked the audience, where do we go to be all that we are in relation to our intersecting and really contradicting identities? And the script and performance of this piece in this place where we have gone and continue to be all in, it continues to be a creative place to explore queer faith, friendship, and the possibilities of our futures together. And we're excited to bring you all along with us. So now, without further ado, we present to you live from the In the Soil Arts Festival, a reading of scene selections from our show, That Power, by Jonathan Brower and Ari Paranthahan. So, setting. Jonathan is sitting in an empty space, liminal with one door center stage, both terrestrial and otherworldly. Scene 1, Powers of the Universe Council.
Hello. It's Jesus here. Excuse me, can everyone finish up their vegan lunch quickly? We have some pressing matters at hand. All right, everyone, please, can I call your attention to this bearded Jew on your screens? Ah, that's better. Now, everyone, hover, sit, apparate, whatever works in this Zoom-fatigued world. Welcome back to the celestial closet, dearest gods, goddesses, saints, angels, deities, Samis, trinities, and trimurtis. Thanks to Mahavira for chairing our pre-lunch council meeting. Now I, Yeshua, will be chairing the next session, but before we get on with our first item of business, my dad, God the Father, has sent his regrets as there was an unexpected flood on floor 1290. Now, we're here to address an urgent earth matter. Friends, I'm at a loss here. As you know, there are many things I have trusted my followers to discern themselves. Following the example I set, that my spirit of love moves toward inclusivity. I've never needed to be an influencer. This has never been a numbers game, but there have always been wolves in sheep's clothing nibbling at the heels of my sheep, false prophets trying to steal them away. Those false prophets have now fully inundated my church and are so caught up in policing the boundaries of a religion to maintain their own power that they do not see that my spirit has left them. My true sheep no longer hear my voice, and those that speak for me push everyone else away. I hate to admit this, but I am losing them all. They no longer love each other as I love them, and they no longer love me. Am I alone in this? Well, surely we all recognize there's a problem, right? We need new prophets to bring our message of love back. You know, those labeled the heretics and pushed to the margins of power in the world barely know they are loved because of what has been done to them in my name and in your names. They have been made unwelcome, have been told we will not love them as we created them. That's BS. And those who love them in solidarity are abandoning us too. This is a tragedy. Without them, nothing means anything. And not only I, but we have lost them. We need the wisdom and power of these outcasts to resurrect our dying faiths, to reopen the floodgates of our love. We need the women, the people of color, the queer people. They are the new prophets. We must find them and show them their intrinsic worth. Now, will someone help me? Allah. Akna? Oh, come on. None of you have stepped in for ages.
Jesus Christ, I had my hand up.
Oh, my apologies. It's your...
It's Kali.
Yeah, the Hindu god of
sexuality and death.
Right. Yeah.
As you know from your own experience of death, I am the combined form of Shiv and Shakti, the male and female form together, and I represent transformation and destruction. I take this form to ward off evil and manifest when evil approaches. This isn't a choice. You need me.
Why exactly?
Because it's already too late. Without my intervention, there is no hope. The only option we have left is to flip the switch, find courage to ruin what we've built to start again. I have the power to destroy, and that's what we need to do.
You want to destroy what we've built?
Everything. Everything.
And then?
We then transition to various scenes of Jonathan and Ari's childhood experiences. Scene 4, Boy 1. Jonathan is writing in a journal.
Dear Jesus, I feel like this new love inside me is just flowing out in all these ways. This everlasting flowing source of something that is always good and always love, and in the end will always win. I'm sorry I missed chapel last night. I really wanted to sing my favorite worship songs to you on the last night of Bible camp, but Ryan and I were having so much fun wrestling in the cabin in our boxers that we missed the bell. We were jumping from bunk to bunk, and we just rolled around like fools, laughing and hugging. It was great. I know you understand, right? I love this love that you put inside me. Ryan loves you, and I love him and his perfect blonde hair. But he lives really far away from Calgary, in Sylvan Lake. So I'm getting nervous I won't get to visit him when camp ends. He said he would come and say goodbye and give me his address before his bus, but I think the Central Alberta bus already left, and I don't know what to do.
As our characters grow into young adults, their intersecting identities create new challenges and conflicts. We learn that Manchari's cousin wants to go through a gender transition, and Manchari's father begs Manchari to talk some sense into her, but Manchari refuses, coming out as trans, and then receives a letter from their father.
Scene 8. Letter from Abba.
Hi, Munji. I'm trying to be a good father. That's why I let you do anything except this. It's bad, Munji. It will destroy your health, honey. I need my lovely, beautiful daughter. I cannot give her up. Don't let your father down in this society. You know we love you so much. Please, please try to understand us. We need our Manchari back with her normal behavior. Joyful, talking back girl. My Kutti, can I give you a suggestion? Why don't you write about your feelings as a story? That way you can reduce your stress, Amma. I'm strongly believing in Shiv. Kutti, I'm praying to him. I'm not saying this is your fault or our fault. This is Shiv's fault. He has to help us pass this difficult period. This is my big request, Kunju. I know God is not going to give up on me. Take care, Kunju. I will pray for you. As a young adult, Jonathan attends conversion therapies multiple times before giving up on trying to be straight and finally embracing his sexual orientation. His coming out and leaving his faith community is met with, Scene 21, don't be fooled. We hear a voicemail. Hey, John, I need to talk to you about what happened at church tonight. Pastor Quinn did a special sermon for the young adults, and well, you just have to hear this.
Brothers and sisters in Christ, I know many of you are hurting, as am I, and I feel it is my duty to address these things head on from the pulpit. A former brother of ours has come out very publicly as a gay Christian on YouTube, where he claims he was subjected to spiritual and emotional bullying and homophobia in our community. These are blatant lies. Let me assure you that we are not afraid of homosexual people. We are not homophobic. Listen, 1 Corinthians 9 says that homosexuals will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. But the Apostle Paul goes on to say that such were some of you. But now your sins have been washed away. You have been set apart for God and made right because of what Jesus has done for you. This is past tense, people. Such were. Jesus can change homosexuals and redeem them. Don't be fooled. God's truth is unchanging. There is no such thing as a gay Christian. That is an oxymoron. You would all be wise to distance yourselves from Jonathan. I know he was meant to be at several weddings and events in the next few months. I will leave these hard choices up to you. But remember that Scripture tells us if a man who has been warned will not be corrected, you are to let him loose and cut your ties, as he will be destroyed. This is extremely difficult for me, as I saw him as my own son. But I have mourned the death of Jonathan, the Jonathan I knew. I do not know this new man. But take heart, dear family. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted.
Scene 23. The gods must be crazy.
Kali!
Calm down, Jesus. It's not like everything is on fire.
That was all you, sex and destruction?
Maybe.
They're about to stop loving us.
Even if they're angry, that's still a relationship.
Well, we can't just sit here and lose them. They need to see real love.
Jumpstart the calloused heart?
Exactly. Remind them that they are loved. That's all I'm asking.
Well then, let's see this resurrection you're all on about.
Not just resurrection, Kali. Resurrection and redemption. If you get to, I get to.
Oh, I'm not done. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Scene 17. Trinity. Ari takes out scripture and starts to pray.
Long ago, the fates predestined Shiva, the head of the Trimurti, the Hindu trinity, to be in love with Shakti, a human woman. Though Shakti did not realize her destiny, she felt called to be with Shiva from her youth and worshipped him despite her father's rejection of Shiva for his queerness. What only Shiva knew was that for them to be together and fulfill their destiny, Shakti needed to die and be reincarnated as a god. Still, he could not bear to see her suffer, and instead accepted his solitude, stopped visiting her, and left it at that. Though it wasn't a logical thing for her to do, deep down she knew that she had to drown herself in the fire to be with him. In her death, she was reborn as the essence of their love. Now, when they come together as one, they are Ardhanishvara, the androgynous form. When Shakti feels evil approaching to protect her family, she transforms into Kali, that lovely figure in the sky, the goddess of death, sexuality, motherly love, and destruction. Some would call Kali the goddess of time. Others would call her a heretic. Her destruction has a purpose.
This life you are after is a lonely one. Is it worth losing everything? Is it worth losing your family?
I need to be who I really am. Okay, let's do this, Tinder.
Swipes left and then right.
Trinity?
Swipes right.
A match. We start to get to know each other. We sit in dark bars and learn more about each other. You say,
He was just a phase.
and,
I don't know what I identify as.
and,
I'm just attracted to everyone.
yeah, me too. You tell me about how your family reacted when you told them you were in love with a woman. Me too. You tell me about your ex and how you thought he was the one. Me too. You tell me about the person who wouldn't stop when you asked him to. Me too. We go to strip clubs together, and I wonder why we aren't just stripping for each other at home. We get intimate. It's everything I imagined it would be. Your hair falls around my face, protecting it from the rest of my body, and I feel seen, protected, as if you are Kali, that lovely figure in the sky. Kali, an embodiment of Shiv and Shakti's love, is like us, merging together. I never thought my first time being with a woman could feel so divine. Trinity, I have to tell you something. I think I'm ready to transition, and it's because of you. You make me feel seen and make me feel closer to my faith. And I know it sounds weird, but I feel like Kali has brought us together. You see the Gemini in me, the feminine and the masculine, and I'm ready. And it's all thanks to you. I just love you so much. Things start to change. I haven't heard from you in months. You start hiding when I want to see you, and I retreat when you appear. When we do talk, you tell me you just started dating your now fiance, a cis man. You tell me that you are pregnant, that you're getting married, that you had moved in together. And I wonder if one day I'll end up saying reluctantly, me too. But no. Trinity, I thought you'd be here with me on this journey, but I'm doing it anyways. I call the clinic and make my first appointment to see the gender therapist. I'm doing this. Why does destruction have to be a bad thing?
Scene 25. Dear body.
Dear body, you feel like a home away from home, one I continue to leave behind in moments of weakness. I wish I was stronger for you. I wish I had fought harder for you, hard enough to keep you strong and brave, especially when I float away. I ran so far from your cry, I failed to notice when you had had enough. I abused you over and over to make my head feel light. I hurt you when I tried to forget, tried to pretend like me and you, this mind and this body, haven't been through this special kind of hell that we are still stuck in. You screamed for peace, and now I listen to your needs. This body would rather break than belong to a person who doesn't exist anymore. Now I am trying to be gentler, handle you with care, a fragility that I haven't given you before. You rest for hours and I let you. I handle you the way I hope my heart is handled, and I repeat as a reminder over and over, on your own time, on your own time. I'm going to take you home. Scene 24, Just Rocker. Organ music plays in the background. Jonathan sits in a pew holding a Bible. He slams it shut.
I can't read this damn book anymore.
Got a little distant at the moment?
Yeah. Gone, actually. Sorry about the profanity, Reverend Walker.
Well, you know what we say.
I know. Whoever you are, wherever you're at.
Yeah, join us on the journey. That really does mean everyone.
It's a good catchphrase, Reverend Rocker, but I don't know what journey I'm on anymore.
You can just call me Rocker.
Really?
Joking. Pam is totally fine.
Okay. So you really do mean everyone then? Because I was always told comedians, especially ones with big hair, were headed straight to hell.
Well, things don't look so good for me then, do they? But you've got it mixed up. The higher the hair, the closer to God. And good hair loves company. Listen, you're not alone, Jonathan. The Bible was weaponized in your life, so if it's getting in the way of your relationship with God, then stop reading it for now. There are other ways to hear God.
But Reverend Pam, I need to know how to use it to defend myself, to prove that I'm not wrong.
It's not your job to prove it. It's our job as the church to bring life to each other, to be Jesus to each other. You now redeem the faith through a gospel of inclusion and resurrect the beautifully queer parts of it that were cut off.
I mean, I love that. But if my old church heard I believe that, they'd say I wasn't even trying to be a Christian anymore.
Jesus wasn't even a Christian. I'm sorry, Jonathan, but that's nothing but bad theology, and bad theology kills.
I'm trying to be here, but the United Church feels like culture shock to me.
Well, you don't have to come if it's not good for you. But if and when you're ready, there's a faith community who celebrates you for who you are. I know we can't get all the time back you spent thinking God wouldn't love you for you, but we can get joy back. And maybe a more queer God will show up for you on that journey. It doesn't have to be with us. Just know that church is supposed to be a place of worship for all. So no matter what, we can't let those divisive fuckers hold our beautiful faith hostage.
They are.
Jesus probably wouldn't say fuckers, but I'm not Jesus, and I'm not male or Jewish, so we don't have a lot in common, but we make it work. Jonathan, you don't have to prove you belong anymore. You belong.
She tosses the Bible away. I think I'm in love with you.
I like women, but I'm happy we're swimming in this gay lake of fire together. Now let's see if there's another fish in here for you. Scene 26, When I Met You.
Dear body, if they can love you, if this inclusive version of God can love you for who you are, then I better damn well start. Dear body, for years I filled you with junk to make you undesirable so I wouldn't go on Grindr or to the gay clubs, so no one, including me, would want you. The more disgusting I felt about you, the less I was a danger to my theology. I shut up your springs and sealed up your fountain. I put you in bondage. I'm sorry. You are beautiful.
I'm still here. I've been here all along.
Dear body, I remember you. I face who I am, the naked truth, and in my nudity, I meet Kyle. And the rules that held me down for all those years, religious contracts, conversion therapy, are all voided by our skin stuck together, never better. What they held from me, we fulfilled, taking back as lovers, as friends, connected to our bodies, not theology, surprised by what they say to each other, shameless, proclaiming liberation, captives set free from our genes. When he slides between my slippery slopes and enters me like the Holy Spirit, there's no prayer on my lips and no thought of the past, just trust as I realize his veins throb to remind me that our love has overcome. And the Lord said, it is good.
And in time, our two prophets meet as the play transitions from past to future.
Scene 35, Kalyana Venu. Hindu party music plays in the background.
Jonathan, I can't believe you flew here just for this.
Just for this. Ari, you're getting married. That's huge. Whoa, your parents, yeah, they really went all out for this, didn't they?
I don't think you know what all out means to this family, but it's definitely more than I could have dreamed.
Honestly, when I got your parents' phone call to invite me, I had no idea who it was. You never told me their real names, so they were always just Appa and Amma to me. I mean, of course I would come. Ari, you're like family.
Chosen family.
Even better. I'm sorry Kyle couldn't be here. He's doing good work. He just started a trans health family practice, so he can't abandon ship for at least the next 6 months.
Can I get you a drink? Wine?
Yeah. You know me well. God, I miss our wine nights in Niagara, but I'm so happy for you and Laxmi. I can see why you love this place. So, where is Laxmi? I'm desperate to meet her.
Doing some last minute shopping with my parents. She'll be back in a few hours. So we have some time to catch up. How was your flight?
I mean, long. Lots of masks. I wrote a good sermon and caught up on season 20 of RuPaul's Drag Race. And
I can't keep up. Too many drama queens. How's business for the spiritually nomadic efficient?
Oh, I changed the name. So now it's just Queerly Speaking Rituals. And now I do weddings, funerals, and baptisms, and really, I'll queer any ritual you want. Just give it a read.
Well, I'm purely having a Hindu, but everything is pretty much planned. Although, how would you like to help my sister with the prayer for her new baby, the one to Lord Ganesh, the remover of all obstacles? It symbolizes peace, happiness, and friendship.
Yeah, say no more. I'm totally honored. I would love to do that.
And once the parents leave and the party starts, I expect no less than a lot of dancing from you that's too sexy for this world, but just right for this wedding.
You know me well. Okay. Yeah. So, Ari, have they said it yet?
Said what?
You know. Him.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. I'm so happy.
Appa, a few weeks back, says, now remember, Amma, we don't give him away. We are entrusted Laxmi by her parents. And Mom has this moment where she starts to cry, and I start to cry, and I say, Amma, why are you crying? I'm sorry, I don't want to ruin this. And she says, Kunju, don't be silly. Tears of joy. If we don't have to give you away, you never have to leave us.
God, I'm going to be a total mess for this whole thing. I just know it.
Come on, let me show you my Sri Lanka. Hindu dance music fades up alongside a raucous American pop song. They start to dance, and we see shadows of wedding celebrants partying happily. Scene 34, flipping temples. Jesus and Kali are together.
They still love us!
See, just a temporary abandonment, enough to see your love is definitively queer.
Oh, it was so hard to watch.
Well, it's good to be reminded once in a while that if you never rebuild, there's nothing left to destroy.
We should do this more often.
Yeah, we're onto something.
Wait. You're still here. Why aren't you gone?
You really want to get rid of me?
No, I mean, you were summoned by the problem. We fixed it. We found our queer prophets. So now, aren't you supposed to be gone?
That was 2. We need to resurrect more.
Well, then let's go flip some more tables.
Cute. You flip the tables, I'll flip the temples. They exit.
The end.
For now. All right. So that was our excerpt reading. So Jonathan, just really quickly, do you want to just get into the other stuff, or should we do questions?
Yeah, let's bring Ian back, and we'll have some of the Nest residents come in.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for that. That was great. So beautiful. Oh my goodness. I am seeing here that we do have a couple of the Nest residents that do have questions for you folks. So if you're okay with that, we might just jump on over to them. Tristan is saying that he has a question. Are we able to bring Tristan in live to ask that question?
Hola.
Hey, Tristan, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
Well, thank you. What question do you have for these folks?
My question is just based on the video you had of when you first performed it in like the Black Box Theater. Also, well, firstly, wow, that was really beautiful. And I got to say, there's a lot of, I love the relationship that you two guys, you have on stage with your characters. It's such an intimate piece as well. And a lot of vulnerability you guys put in this, very personal stuff. Anyways, so beautiful, so pure too. So the staging of it, I actually really loved the simplistic staging you did in the Black Box because it had such this hard focus on you two and you know everything that you were discussing, talking about. I was going to ask, what were your plans with future stagings of this, if you had any, besides the whole doing it live because of the pandemic? But if you were to do another staging of it, how would you do it? Would you keep it more like Black Box, or where would you like to go with it?
That's a great question. I just want to, for our audience who doesn't know, we talked briefly about the workshop that we did that was a closed audience, and we recorded that archive, and we made it available to the Nest residents to watch, and we're going to actually have a discussion after this. But for you as an audience, in the store, I was going to post that archive after this if you're interested in digging deeper to what we did in the past. Ari, do you have any thoughts before I share mine about?
Yeah, I mean, I know that we really loved that version as well. Like, we love the idea of the door in the background because there were so many people, for everyone that got to read the full script, there's so many people that enter and exit our lives as we come out or stay in the closet, that sort of thing. So the door served as kind of like a revolving door for all the changes that we were going through too, which worked out pretty well. But what do you think, Jonathan? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, when we were planning on bringing it in the soil, they were like, "What do you need in terms of staging?" And we were like, "Just make sure there's a door." So yeah, that was definitely a key element. And originally we had some column powder on the floor, which was different colors, and so we were using that to map up the destiny. So the gods sort of mapped our destinies on the floor, and then we walked through it, and then as our destinies intertwined through the column powder. So we love that image, but we're not sure it doesn't quite translate into the newer version.
Okay.
But yeah, we're still working on imagery and different ways that we can clarify the story. But like you said, it was so clear to us that there's so much back and forth, and that if there's too much going on stage, it's distracting. The quick changes between all the different characters will start to get a bit muddy. And so we just wanted to really home in on our performances and help us sort of focus in that way. So to be determined, that's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you do, and thank you again for sharing this. It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tristan. Okay, we do have someone else that wants to ask a question. Kaylin has a question for you folks. Can you bring Kaylin in? Okay.
Hi.
Hi, what's your question?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I think my question comes in two parts, if that's okay. So part one would be, do you guys have plans on further producing the show, and in that sense, bringing more actors into it? And with that, I think that question came about because I was wondering if you guys had any conversations during your process when it first started about playing other races and genders, because you guys play other characters for each other. You guys swap characters yourselves a lot throughout the play. So do you have plans to extend that out to other actors, or is that not really in the works right now?
So I know when we first created this, we really wanted, like Jonathan mentioned at the beginning, it to be just about like it being like a really safe space to share all the trauma. And we never really thought, at least I didn't think, that it could get to the point that it is now. Like when we first wrote it, it was pure Jonathan's master's, and so we both got involved and stayed involved in it without bringing extra people in for that purpose. But I think now that we've kind of fleshed it out more, and we have so many different kinds of or like different people in it and that sort of thing, yeah, I don't think, like, we haven't really discussed that. But what are your thoughts, Jonathan? I don't really
well what was really like this is a huge learning piece for us in terms of embracing each other's different characters in each other's lives. Like I play originally I played Appa and Amma and a whole bunch of other characters, and Trinity and Ari played the pastor and like some of my lovers and different things like that. So when we were creating this, because we had built that, like we started first we created, instead of creating scenes, we created trust, and then we built the scenes from the trust. And so as we staged it, we were able to step into the voices of the people and these experiences that had been super oppressive, and we're able to sort of safely hold those characters for each other. And so we also were stepping in with our like current queer selves that have been through a lot, like have processed a lot in our lives now, and are embracing the holistic pieces of ourselves. And so we're stepping in from the current us and into the past, our past cis heteronormative narratives, and actually queering those characters of ourselves in our past, which was super important. So there's like this dual thing going on where we're stepping in for each other safely to play those characters, no matter what gender or race they are, and then but keeping it the two of us feels right now like a simple like the current solution, because we had that trust built that it wasn't like, I don't think you can play that character and I don't want you to. Where if we were to bring other actors in, it could muddy the waters a bit in terms of who's there, but it's totally not. I mean, we still want to bring this to another draft, and I think the way we're treating this each version of the script is an archive that's like, well, this was part of my thesis, like theorizing, but it's a permeable archive, like permeable transitional archive. So we have the capacity, each product, each script is its own piece that honors us and honors that part of our story. And as we move forward through our lives and think, that stuff can kind of leave. We can get rid of those pieces. That's not important to my story anymore. The show continues to evolve, and there's a new version of it. So through our friendship and our relationship that we plan to like arc this for life, we have a show that will continue with us. So I think it would be really hard to bring in extra people unless they go through the same creation trust building.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for
your question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have, so I don't think any of the other nesters have any questions, but I do. I just want to chat a bit about what I read in the description for this piece. As a part of your description, you say that power is a living archive that collages moments of loss, trauma, and self-reinvention into a queerly spiritual timeline where heartbreak bends toward unexpected friendship and collective resistance. And that phrase is really beautiful, that heartbreak bends toward. It kind of made me think of like a plant bending towards the light, this notion that like breaking means the possibility of making something new, that a severance means the emergence of a new path, So I wonder if you could both maybe speak a bit to that imagery, and like, what was it about maybe I know you spoke about this a bit at the beginning, but what was it about your collective heartbreak that sort of inspired you both to bend towards like a mutual truth and understanding, and then sort of led you to pursue this work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that's kind of a loaded question, so answer what it feels safe and good.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to go first, Jonathan?
Sure, I can set up. So I love the language of that bending. That comes from some of the things that came up in our creation process, where we started really organically, and before we built any scenes, we just got to know each other, and we were using what is a methodology called critical narrative inquiry. And it sounds like complicated, but really what it is just treating each of our narratives as data, as truth. And so those experiences are truthful. And we move forward in a critical way where we're very casual about how we get to know each other. But it's for long-term relationships. So as we were like creating, we were exploring these traumas and these pieces and pulling them apart, and like identifying this low violence, this erosive violence of intersectional oppressions that were part of both of our lives, and then pulling those apart and working into the trauma. And so when we go to the heartbreak, and it starts to bend toward this beautiful futurity, because we were able to together say that was really terrible, but because we can now identify that, we've spoken our truths to each other and testified, we can look and say, well, now we can identify that and say that should have been better, and now we can dream about what could be better. And so that's the bending, where it's like you see it and then you move toward that future.
Yeah, well, I know that like one of the things that we did was like just to speak a bit about like the thinking about our futures. Like there were moments for both of us where we couldn't really envision a better future for ourselves. And one of the things that I had used in the play, because we use lots of like real letters from other people or real journal entries in the script. So the letter that I got from my dad was a real letter that I got from him when I first came out to him. And, you know, Jonathan asked this question, you know, what would you have liked him to say? Or what do you hope he says in the future? And I couldn't even fathom anything, any kind of response from them. So Jonathan actually wrote a letter from him to me in the future. And that was kind of like when you ask that question, that's the first thing that comes to mind, where it's like, I had this friend that knew me so well that that was able to figure out what I need and put it on paper for me. So that's kind of the stuff I think that sentence kind of embodies. And we did it with each other too, which was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. We do have a couple of people in the live comments right now that have questions that have come up. So Marcel jumped in there too. He has a question.
Awesome.
How did you develop trust during your process? Can you share what steps you took? Were there resources that you consulted, or did it come about organically?
Ari, do you want to?
Yeah, we did a lot of different kind of things. Like it was like we had kind of met through a mutual friend, and we first just kind of started hanging out as friends before we started working on this. But then after, we did a lot of like we did create the first draft in like I think 2 months, but we were like together every day for like 8 hours a day. We like went and saw theater together. We drank wine together. We just talked together. We went on kind of like a day trip to each other's place of worship in one day, just to kind of see what our lives like, walk in each other's shoes type thing. We did lots of things. Am I forgetting anything? I definitely am, but we like shared readings with each other, like things that we really resonated with, things that and I think the most intimate thing was like reading journal entries and like letters from other people, which is like like that was like a huge trust moment. Yeah, am I forgetting anything? I'm sure I am.
I mean, there was so much that we did. We tried to improv and stuff. We improved as our gods, and we like improved as our gods intervening in each other's lives, and we did a lot of that stuff. But I think for the two of us both also coming from social justice backgrounds, there's sort of an implicit idea that we were on a similar page, but we really needed to, like at the beginning of our process, before we started anything, like even before I proposed my thesis fully to my committee, Ari read through the proposal and we consulted about it. So from the building of it all the way through to the final thesis draft and my presentation, Ari read every single piece, which is like amazing. And it just used to ensure that there was this equilibrium and like like that it was not hierarchical. And so we like also right out the front established what credit would be, how the show would carry if it ever had a production, like created these contracts for ourselves that we could honor together, and just really explicitly name the power differentials in who we were too. And that was, I think, really helpful for me, because then as I was unpacking my own white privilege and all these different pieces of establishing my own like feminist solidarity with Ari, I needed to do a lot of that work on my own and prior, and also be able to say, not just name identities or things that I believe in, but actually show those things on the ground. And so in our creation process, I think like it wasn't until like August, we started in June, it wasn't until like July, where there was this breaking moment where I had written this poem about seeing Ari, which makes it into the first draft of the show, and then like sharing that piece and being like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. I want to show up for you, and so just like really being explicit about, you know, who I am and how that can impact and also cause challenges in the creation process was really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, when you do have a safe space to create with folks, it's really beautiful how, you know, this sort of like this self-evolution, this like showing up for each other starts to organically happen, right? Like calling each other in about stuff and like facilitating each other's growth is like, maybe aside from the work itself, is like one of the most beautiful aspects of working in a trusting partnership like that.
For sure.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. We do have a couple more comments, questions, if you folks are okay with answering them.
Yeah, that's it.
So we have Kyler, who said, so grateful we got to see this play live in a private performance. Can you tell us where folks can find some of your current art/work?
Okay, Ari, do you want to take it first?
I guess the YouTube, we have the YouTube link, right? That I think is private right now of our first version. That I think is available to the public, that people can see if they'd like to. And I think we're sharing the archive with people after this as well, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So like for this piece specifically, that that archive, and then I think maybe I'll even let In the Soil or like ask them to put a link to the thesis as well, because the script and the performance link are in that thesis to watch.
Great.
But like I think for me, I don't have a website right now. With my like arts contracts, I do. I would like to create one, but I think right now it's mostly Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So I can like, maybe we'll ask In the Soil to put our links, but mine is at, and then it's regarding DIS is my Twitter, and then my Instagram is at OMBRETTO. And then I like post about what's on next and what's happening, and those are the most.
Regarding your Twitter handle, like a reference.
Yeah, it's like a total. I created it when I was still in the closet, and it's about like this. It's like about Moses who, like, you know, forsake becoming a king of Egypt or prince of Egypt to like follow God. Anyways, so I like cut off a lot. All the hangovers from our religious past.
Well, but your thesis and the link to the show are both public, right? That people can, yeah. So
okay, yeah. So we'll get Suitcase then to see if they can post the link for people to go in and check that out after. That's great. We have, let's see, we have Kyle that is on Facebook and says that you have such a great connection even through the internet across the country. True. I really felt this in the wedding scene, especially. That wedding scene for me, when I read that, I like tears was just, because it's that thing about in like you said so often for queer and trans folks, it's like when you don't see something, you don't believe it's possible, right? So when you don't see people, you know, like folks of color, trans folks of color living past the age of 32 or whatever the life expectancy is, like when you don't see that, you start to wonder, like, what does my future look like? What does aging look like? What does family, what does partnership, what does any of that look like? So sort of envisioning and putting to words that moment, I was speechless. It's beautiful. So Kyle is asking, like, what is it like performing that and sort of that like visceral of a piece in this reading format, in this live virtual format that we have to do this in?
Yeah, it did feel like, I mean, I'm a nervous wreck most of the time, but working with Jonathan and having that that trust that we developed, like, 2 years ago, like, I don't think I've ever worked like that with somebody and like shared so many intimate things. Like, I think that trust that we developed in the beginning really made for that connection that kind of lasts when we perform this. What do you think, Jonathan?
I mean, it did actually. That's the first time that we've rehearsed this sort of workshop leading up to this, but that felt very magical and really organic too. So it was like, oh yeah, because it really showcases. So in the arc of the show, we really try to figure out, because we're doing our solo journeys as we are like in the closet and trying to figure that out. And then finally we come together, and then we have like one scene together, and then this scene, and then sort of like what happens next. And we've been trying to figure out how to get that really cool like back and forth that we have, that dynamic that we have, to go deeper into the script. So we have it with the gods. We try to insert it so that it happens earlier, even though we haven't met yet. But yeah, there's yeah, it's really special. It is really special.
Yeah,
that's all I can describe it as.
Yeah, no, it is very special. You folks have like quite a genuine connection. It's really beautiful to watch. We do have another question from the live comments on Facebook. Joanne says, thank you for doing this inclusive piece for and across Canada. Why did you choose the scenes that you did? I assume that was difficult to sift through and decide which scenes. So how did you folks get to the decision?
Yeah, we were trying to give like a snapshot of our lives and the arc of our lives. Like when we were working with Diane Flax, we were really something that was made very clear was that what's our journey? Because in the first version we were more trying to share our stories, and I think in the second version we have more of like those arcs in there where it's like this is the journey this character goes through, and therefore us because it's about our lives. But when we were specifically, we were trying to do like past, present, future, like what's happened in the past, where are we kind of at right now, and then what could our future look like. So we were trying to just figure out the scenes that explained that well enough to an audience. Like if this was all they were hearing, would it make sense? Would it show who we were, who we are now, and what we want for our lives? Yeah.
It was definitely difficult to sift through. I mean, we both pitched, like did a proposal to each other, and then we like tried it, and then like added more in. And it took us a good couple of weeks to be like, okay, this feels right. And it only felt right last night, and we were like, yeah, I think we have it. Like it felt so right, and we read through it, and it was 45 minutes, and we were like, oh no.
Yeah.
Because the show itself, the actual length of it right now in writing as a script, we're narrowing it down, but I think like it clocks out at 90 or no, it's 110 minutes or 120 minutes. So it's long. And so what we're trying to do with Diane is parse out all the extra pieces that are like interesting and important and can like live in that archive that we've written now, and we can put it aside and say, we've told those stories, but now the journey that will take an audience through like this really cool experience is what we really want to feature next.
Right. Okay. Well, unless anybody else has any pressing questions watching the live feed, I'll give you a second to throw any up there if you do have any. I think that might be it, folks.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, do you folks have any closing comments that you would like to share with everybody? No pressure. Just if there was something.
Yeah, I mean, we have so much. Jonathan?
I mean, one thing that was really important in our creation process that still informs us today was this link that we made with authors that were like queer mentors of faith that aren't directly mentoring us, but that we had read their work. And I was wondering maybe we should just put those names out there because they really have done incredible work that identifies. In the write-up I wrote, our holy queer origins. That's cool, and like helping us feel like we might be the like types of queer prophets in a way. Ari, do you want to talk about Vivek?
Yeah, Vivek Shreya's work was one of the first times like reading through that where I read something that was, I guess like mostly mainstream, where she's publicly talking about being a trans woman, but also talking about being Hindu, and she doesn't give up one or the other. I think that was like such a huge thing for me to read because that was the first time that my faith had become accessible to me in a way that like I actually understood it. It was easy to understand. It was poetic. It was beautiful. And then I was also able to see myself finally, like, and that's one or two people, also Alok Vaid Menon. But in terms of Hinduism and being trans, and like that was like one of the first few times that I had seen someone like that doing that, and that was huge for me. And so we used a lot of Vivek's readings or writing, sorry, in our work. Yeah, and you talked about Liz Edmond a lot, right? That you would, yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth Edmond wrote this book called Queer Virtue, which she's a lesbian and a Christian reverend, and she talks about sort of the way that Christianity is actually queer inherently, and how the journey of coming out and coming to terms with who you are, and the destruction that needs to happen for the rebuilding is so interesting and close to sort of the Christian arc, that narrative. And that there's like this scandal that happens in coming out, and all these different pieces that she links to the story of Christ. And it's a really interesting queering. But I try to, like, there's queer religion and then queering religion, and so Liz actually is like, Liz and Vivek seem to be pulling back the layers to say, look, at this already is here. We have been here. We are here. And I love that idea, because I think so often you hear that we're queering something, and it's like we're putting this queer lens, but we're looking at something that's straight or something that's heteronormative. Well, in reality, we're pulling back the layers to reveal that, like, this has always and should have always been a priority in our faith systems and in our society, and we just all, those of us who are queer and trans, become the prophets to be like, see, look at how beautiful our lives are and how amazing we are. We are worthy of to be celebrated, and just as much as you. So that was really, like, a lot of the script too was like an homage. Like as we layered our past stories and lives in this linear order, and then disrupted with our queer gods. We wanted to also have people be able to link into the fact that we have this innate queerness that is great and is beautiful. So.
We do have a pressing question that's come through on YouTube. Laurel is saying, thank you for such a generous event. For anyone that is struggling to share their voice and stories right now, what would you say to them?
Oh, wow.
I think one of the things, when we were working with Diane, and like, so one of the things that we were doing when we were starting to write the play was like tarot card readings, because I remember when we first started writing the play, I was still, at that point, I was still so ashamed and not prideful enough of who I was, and I knew what I felt, but I wasn't writing about it. Like, I wasn't really sharing my story at the beginning of the writing process. I was just kind of like tiptoeing around what I wanted to say. It definitely wasn't where it was right now, but I remember I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I give up queerness or do I give up faith? As if it was just like, okay, let me just pick one. So I was doing this tarot card reading, and there was a lot of like sword cards. And for anyone who knows sword cards, it was like a lot of chaos. So I was just trying to take the easier way. And I think what that told me, like at the time, what resonated with me was that it's going to be destructive and chaotic no matter what. So it's either going to be worse for you or worse for other people. So what can you live with, kind of thing. And I know that when we were working with Diane, she was saying, you know, like there's no way you can avoid hurt, and you can't avoid hurting other people either. So at the end of the day, it's kind of just like a negotiation, right? Like, what can you live with, and what, and because you live with yourself for the rest, you know, you live with yourself. What can you do for yourself, even if it hurts other people? So I think the biggest thing for when I was thinking these questions when we first started writing it was, you know, what can I do for me, even if it hurts other people? Like, what's the best thing to do? So that kind of helped me share my story more, because I realized I was doing it for me, and I was taking a load off my shoulders, sort of thing. So yeah. What about you, Jonathan?
I think what's so interesting about this question is that somebody who might be struggling to share their story, there's multiple levels of the struggle, right? It's like, first, how do I write, or how do I find my voice? And then how do I get somebody to believe in my voice? And then how do I get my work out there? So there's these three pieces, and probably more that I'm not identifying. But when I think about first, like the finding your voice, I used to call it, I had this blog that I wrote when it first came out called Authentegrity, which is like I was like, oh, anyways. But I was like, how do I observe non-judgmentally? How do I step back and look at my life and say, you know, what is any of this harmful, or is this like, I'm using Christianese here, but like, is this bearing fruit? Is this stuff good? And I think it's really hard to look non-judgmentally at your life from the inside. And so for me, it was really about making sure that I had people in my life that were willing to go there with me and to step in and say, even just being able to say, okay, here's where I'm at. This is my journey, what I'm struggling with. Do you see, like, am I judging myself? Am I like, or am I walking a path where I'm observing and moving towards the next right thing? And I needed other people to be able to look at me and say, actually, John, like, you've been to conversion therapy like 5 times now. Like, this is clearly not working for you. And, you know, there's probably another journey. And so that's like a bit of mentorship, but it's also lateral mentorship, which is key. And then I think, like, when I'm thinking of how Ari and I did our process, a lot of times we felt like we couldn't access our voices and stories in a like, oh, this needs to be a play. So we both started writing poetry, and poetry became the backbone of the scenes for us to expand and explore more. So even just writing, like, trying, it doesn't have to have any specific structure, but just getting it down, and that helps take it out of you, and then to be able to look at it hopefully in a more non-judgmental way, and then start to expand from there. So I don't know if that, like, completely, I mean, that's some of the methods that I use, but.
That was great. No, I think it's also in communities, like in marginalized communities, I think that there's like a lot of imposter syndrome that happens too. You know, like, a lot of like, is my voice valid? Is my story valid? Can I, you know, do I have the right to be talking about this? Like, there's a lot that, at least for myself, I guess I can only speak for myself. There's a lot of this, like, being self-critical, this analysis of being like, is it worthy? Is there space for it? You know, and you sort of have to, like you said, you have to just start to do the work, right? Like, you have to just get it down, get it out, and then sort of have it available to, like you said, like the cross-lateral, like, mentorship, like, have other people then be able to be a part of the process. So it's not just this, like, feedback loop yourself, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think, unless you folks have anything else, I think that is it for the live questions.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for moderating and facilitating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course. A pleasure. This is such a beautiful piece. I am so glad that I got to be a part of this reading and discussion today. Thank you, folks, for doing this work and for sharing it with us all.
Yeah, we're really just pleased to be able to be in the soil, and so grateful for the chance to share a bit of this work. And I think for us, we don't know where it will go next or what will happen with it, but we appreciate your feedback and your honesty, and all of you for watching. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both.
All right. Well, I guess we'll say goodbye, and we're going to jump into another forum with the Nest residents from Two Case in Point. So, bye everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.